right, I'm going to be going through the other extra worksheet of 6.2. Again, I'm going to talk through my steps as I'm making the answer key for you guys, so that it can help you with a little bit of the steps if you need. So if I have something like this, so we're going to start with the decimals page. So x plus 0.4 is equal to 0.6. So my goal, get my variable alone. The opposite of plus 0.4 is minus 0.4. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other, which means that x is equal to 0.2. K minus 1.2 is equal to 1.8. So the opposite of minus 1.2 is plus 1.2. What I do to one side, I do to the other, which means that K is equal to 3. 1.3 plus n is equal to 2. So the opposite of 1.3 is going to be minus 1.3. There's no sign in front, which means it was positive. What I do to one side, I'm doing to the other. So n is equal to 0.7. Same steps, but the variable's on the other side, but it doesn't really matter. The opposite of negative 1.8 plus 1.8. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So please remember that you have a negative and a positive here. If you're using your calculator to put it in, it's going to actually give me 0.3 is equal to A. The next one, 0.5x is equal to 1.5. So it is next to it, which means that a multiplication. So the opposite would be a division. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So x is actually equal to 3. Again, it is right next to it, which means it's a multiplication. So the opposite would be a division. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So s is equal to negative 2. Again, multiplication, so I would do a division, divide by negative 0.5, which gives me, 2 divided by 0.5 is 4, and a positive and negative is a negative. Negative 4 is equal to D. Okay, and for 8, the opposite of multiplying by 1.6 is dividing by 1.6. So 6.4 divided by 1.6, again, is equal to 4. A negative and a positive is a negative. Okay, now we have a two-step equation. So we start with adding and subtracting first, and then we do multiplying and dividing. So the opposite of plus 0.8 minus 0.8 minus 0.8, 8. So 5x is equal to 0.4. Divide by 5, divide by 5. X is equal to 0.08. Okay, for the next one, I'm going to get rid of this 2. There's no sign in front of it, which means it's a positive, so the opposite is minus 2. So that gives me minus 3.6 is equal. This subtraction is becoming a negative. The opposite of multiplying by negative 0.4 is dividing. So 3.6 divided by 0.4 is equal to 9, and 2 negatives make it a positive is equal to y. Okay, and question 11. I'm going to start by moving my variables to the same side. So this one is smaller, so I'm going to move this one. So the opposite of 0.5a is minus 0.5a. What I do to one side, I'm doing to the other. I'm left with negative 1 is equal to 2 plus 0.1a minus 2 minus 2. Negative 3 is equal to 0.1a. Divide by 0.1. So 3 divided by 0.1 is equal to 30. And because a negative and a positive, my answer is going to be negative. Okay, and if we worked with this last one, so again, I'm going to start by putting my variables on the same side. So this one's smaller, so I'm going to move my smaller variable. which is leaving with 1.2 is equal to 0.1y plus 0.63 minus 0.63, because that's the opposite of plus. What I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. So 1.2 minus 0.63 is equal to 0.57, and that's equal to 0.1y. The opposite of multiplying by 0.1 is dividing by 0.1, which gives me an answer of 5.7 is equal to y. Hopefully the decimal sections made sense.